Welcome everybody to our Behavior Change Special Series. SLAP, Silver Lining Action Plan, is our 13-month program. It's built based on behavior change science. And so we did want to take a moment to gather the top leading behavior change experts of 2018 to help us learn more about this fascinating field of study. So at Silver Lining, we truly do believe that in order for a small business to succeed and hit their growth goals, they have to form healthy success habits. There's just no doubt about it. There is a recipe for success, and so we've created this special series in order to help small businesses, as yourself, to get the results that you want. So today we are incredibly excited to welcome Dr. Lisa Bélanger, an award-winning CEO who shows leaders and teams how insights from behavioral science research can be applied in the workplace to optimize the performance, productivity, and innovation of leaders and teams. She helps to close the gap between intention and action, resulting in long-term change and competitive advantage. And so with a PhD in behavioral medicine, Dr. Bélanger is the CEO and founder of Conscious Works, a consulting firm that helps everyone from executives to entrepreneurs apply the findings from leading-edge scientific analysis to maximize their mental and physical well-being at work and at home. So welcome, Lisa. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. Thank you for taking time out of your incredibly busy schedule to speak with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Great. So as we come into, this time of year, we're coming into the holidays, and then after the holidays close out, we have this time of year, New Year's, where certainly most individuals that I know, they set goals for themselves, New Year's resolutions, and I myself fall into this 100%. I am 100% the cliche as well. We set personal goals. January 1st, we're to get this done. We set ourselves professional goals for ourselves. However, most of us, and I certainly fall into this as well, most of us really struggle to take action to get the results that, we're actually hoping to achieve. So in your opinion, can you share with us, what is actually in the way of people hitting the goals that they set for themselves?
The number one mistake people make, especially at New Year's, is setting multiple goals. An example of this, and a classic example, is I'm going to eat better and I'm going to work out and I'm going to do all the healthy things. And then 2 weeks later, they're wondering why they didn't succeed. So the key there is one thing at a time. And the great thing about the health behaviors, as I'm picking on them, they actually all impact each other. So you sleep better, you're more likely to make that decision and have the energy to be physically active. If you're physically active, you're going to crave healthier food and you're going to sleep better, and it's going to help manage your stress. So they all do impact each other, but choosing simply one of those to go after. The other thing that often is a mistake is setting a goal that the reward is way too far in the future. Like, I want to be healthier. Well, what does that mean? That's so abstract. That's so far in the future, when honestly, that future self cannot strong arm you into doing anything, but you can absolutely strong arm a donut into your mouth. So coming up with these immediate benefits of these behaviors that, yes, it will result in a healthier you, a healthier future you, longer life, whatever you want to say, but it has that immediate benefit. So an example would be working out, exercise, looking at the benefit of, better mood, better sleep, sanity, sweat for sanity, things that you see immediately after you do it and that are in line with your goals, like, for example, your business goals. So if you want more energy to do work after you put your kids down at night, well, looking at exercise as a way to get there, with that result being immediate.
So what does that mean for setting a long-term goal then? Can you sort of break that out for us, the difference between setting a short-term goal and a long-term goal, and how then do we achieve the long-term goals that we have for ourselves?
Right. And I mean, I'm picking on one that, a healthier you, that's a lifelong goal. That's not a long-term goal. That's a today goal. That's a tomorrow goal. That's a 10-year from now goal. That's an 80-year from now goal. Like, it is something that there's no arrival, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as I pick on that one, it is a little bit more challenging, because those long-term goals, if you think of them more where there is a result, something like, let's say, training for a marathon. The idea is those short-term goals all lead up to that long-term goal. As we've heard in many different sessions, this is how to do it. I'm picking on the short-term goals because they're the ones that matter today, and they're the ones that are going to make you make the decisions of, oh, I should watch that extra episode of Name the Show on Netflix, or I should go for a run, right? So attacking those small, seemingly small decisions that impact those larger goals and larger behaviors. That's what I'm saying. Many people forget that they might have this big goal, and that's amazing, but what are you doing today, and how are you making those small little decisions?
Wonderful. So, and also, so can you just clarify, because I am so guilty of, not just for the New Year's resolution, multiple goal setting. In my head, I have a personal goal for health, for that, like financial goal, my family goal, my health goal, my business goal. Like, I really do. I have set it out that way. Having that one goal being optimal, is it one overriding goal? Like, can you break that down a little bit more for us and help us understand maybe how many goals, how many of these short-term goals is optimal to make sure that we have success in them?
So the idea is, and if you think of that, and we all do it, especially entrepreneurs, where we're setting goals in different areas of our life. If you can say, I'm going to focus on this one. Yes, I'm still going to work towards the other ones, but I'm going to put all sorts of energy and focus onto this one behavior until it becomes a habit, until it becomes integrated into your life. Because if you're trying to change too much at once, it simply won't happen. So if you can choose one that you think that might have the most benefit, or could be the lowest hanging fruit where you think you can integrate it into your life quite easily, choose that, focus on that until it becomes a habit, then start moving on to the next goal.
Right. So it's really about prioritizing what's most important or most urgent to hit the result that you're wanting, and to focus on that particularly, but not forgetting about making the right actions towards making sure that the other goals happen.
Correct. And a great way to look at this is we talk about multitasking and unitasking.
Yeah.
So multitasking is simply impossible. You cannot think of more than one thing at a time, but we try. And unfortunately, that creates less productivity because we have that refractory period, the time that it takes to switch from topic to topic, right? Where if we just did one thing at a time, then led into the next thing, like once we accomplish that, we go to the next thing. That is productivity. And that's actually, of all the productivity tips, that's the one, that's the big one. So kind of thinking of the same thing around behavior change. Can I develop this behavior? And to your point, yes, take action steps towards those other ones. Don't forget they exist, but putting that primary focus, getting that so that it is a habit, establishing that, then moving on to your next.
So that moves in perfectly. So the next question would be, so what do people need to do? And you're touching on all of these things. Maybe if we could just just dial in, what do people need to do to actually hit their goals? They need to focus on one goal. They need to focus on the immediate benefits, you said, rather than this like far outreaching. Can you give us some more examples of things that people need to do to actually hit their short-term goals?
Sure. So I'm going to simplify it. So you're absolutely right. I hit on those ones. I'm going to introduce a couple more elements to it. And with that batch, that's how we create long-term behavior change. So we joke around that behavior change is like murder one. You need motive and you need opportunity. I pick on the motive, and that's that short-term goal. So when we think of motive, yes, you'd like to be healthier, great, you want to get your blood pressure down, whatever it might be, but immediately, what is that? And then the other thing that comes with a motive, and it's so important and we don't talk about it enough, is our self-talk. So what happens if we think of a kid learning to walk? Imagine we talked about them the same way we talk about ourselves. We get up, we get distracted, we don't go to the gym. Oh my gosh, I failed. And that's the language we use. Imagine like seeing a kid take its first couple steps and then be like, well, lay down there, you tried, you failed. Like, of course not. So speaking to ourselves in that same motivational, unbelievably positive way we would speak to a child learning to walk. We are trying to change a behavior. That's an incredibly difficult thing to do. I don't care how big your willpower is, or who you are, or how successful you are. It is a challenging thing to do. That's why most people fail. So creating self-talk that you can use every single day. These are long-term behaviors. These are things we like to increase in our lives. This is the long-term gain. So if you don't go to the gym one day, that's fine. Go tomorrow. So there's a great study done when it comes to growth mindset, this whole concept of how we speak to ourselves. And it was done in a Chicago high school, inner city high school, and a lot of the kids were failing their courses. So what they did on the report card is, instead of putting fail, they put not yet. And that completely changes the conversation. And I encourage you to use that language with yourself and others when you're trying to change a behavior. Is not yet. I didn't go to the gym yet. I'll go tomorrow. Taking that failure completely out of it. Now, when it comes to opportunity, and this is one that we talk a lot about, is where can we fit this in? We're already crazy busy working on a small business, plus parenting, plus life, plus whatever. So how do you fit in this new behavior that you'd like to do? And yes, it would be great if we could section out an hour a day or whatever it is, which if you can, absolutely do. But it's like, if you've ever played hockey or soccer, if you're going towards the net on a breakaway, you look at the net, not the goalie, right? So you're looking for the opportunity, not all the reasons you can't. Right. So this is something that, when we talk about opportunity, it's where can you fit it in? What makes sense for you, your schedule, the amount of time we waste waiting, or driving, or all these different opportunities to fit in behaviors, if we can.
Wonderful. That makes so much sense. I think that self-talk piece is huge. And I love that you've highlighted that. And so really, and as the mom of a 3-year-old, and you shared that you have a 2-year-old, I would never talk to, either of my children that way. But you're right. I'm certainly guilty of being pretty harsh on myself and judgmental and critical. So it's really, and so I hear what you said. You're saying, the self-talk, being very encouraging and supportive, is incredibly important. The language of not yet. So taking the negatives out of our language is going to be very helpful for us to start change. Is it changing the mindset that we have to approach things, to encourage us to continue trying? Is that where the language becomes so important?
Absolutely. And it's amazing what language can do. It's amazing the impact that it has. So we sometimes, especially in a leadership role, we're conscious of the language we use to other people to motivate them or to encourage them or what have you. We're not always so conscious of what we say to ourselves. And that's just, if not more important. So thinking about the language you use, think about the encouragement you use. Many of us don't even have any type of encouragement in our self-dialogue. So thinking about that more, there's so much black and white thinking that we have, and really we exist in gray. So how can we make it work? What can we do? What's next? Those positive approaches.
I think about conversations we've had with our clients, and this is a message that they really need to listen to and take heed of and notice, because I can think of many times where our clients are incredibly hard on themselves for not reaching a goal or not being somewhere they think they're supposed to be at this particular time with their business. So it's just a very important message to drive home.
And you actually raise a really good point. I'm sure you've heard this before, but another way to look at it too is taking every single should out of your language.
Right.
So, the best advice I think I've ever got as a new mom, but it's relevant to business, to health behaviors, to whatever you're trying to accomplish, is don't should all over yourself, because it's just going to be embarrassing for everybody. but just taking the time to, like, why do you have those expectations of yourself? Where are they coming from? Are they something you would ever place on somebody else? What is the reason? Is there any benefit from you stopping to be disappointed, right? So if you think of that big goal, if you think of what you're trying to accomplish, it's now what, right? Okay, now what? Let's keep going.
Love
Now
that.
what?
Well, I love the idea of don't stop to think about what you haven't. It's almost like don't waste your time there. There's not enough time. You don't have enough of that resource to spend wasting in this negative mindset and self-doubt. So continually moving forward and having that flow is really important for behavior change.
Yes.
How would you apply the vast amounts of research that you've done in this area and your expertise specifically to small business owners? We started talking about small business owners, and the self-talk is certainly one way that this stuff applies. What are some other examples that you can give us?
So you, like, to your point about, sorry?
Some words of wisdom.
Oh, yeah. I think, so I was thinking about this question, and I'm a small business owner myself, but in addition to that, I run a national charity and consult with many different projects and partners. And then I have to go and have difficult conversations with diseased patients to explaining to my 2-year-old son why he can't ride the dog like a horse. Like, I have a vast amount of things, as most small business owners do. And I think the competitive advantage, I think the idea when it comes to anything, the success in their business, to their relationships, to behavior change, is this idea of mindset and mindfulness. So being able to be present, being able to articulate your goals and understand them, being able to figure out that self dialogue. And I don't just mean from a behavior change standpoint, but what are those limiting beliefs? What are the things that are getting in the way? But the thing about mindfulness, and arguably mindset as well, is they have to be practiced. This is not where we naturally go, and it's often not where our tired mind goes. But if you practice, whether that's meditation, whether it's mindfulness activities, it actually creates new neurological networks in your brain. It creates a habit, and it actually creates that being the go-to when you encounter stressful situations and or barriers and or whatever it might be. So when I think of small business owners, the idea of being able to be mindful and have that practice so that you can pull on it when you need it the most, which is usually when you're tired and stressed. So you do need to practice it before it needs to be there, if that makes sense.
Totally. I mean, it sounds like, when you put it that way, it's something that needs to be practiced, or it's a practice in your life. I mean, is it fair to say successful people aren't born? It's not a magical thing. It's perhaps they've been practicing more success habits for longer than others, or there's something that they've been taught or learned earlier than others. But this stuff can all be learned now, today. Like, real changes can be made right now that are going to have a really positive impact tomorrow, next week, next month.
These are all learned behaviors. They are. There's no like magic gene that allows us to do this. But to your point of what successful people do, I mean, I think they just fail often and fail better, and then be able to pick themselves up and have that language of not yet, have that language of keep going, and I think that that's something that, the earlier you can learn that, the better. But it is absolutely a learned behavior.
Right, that resilience.
Absolutely.
So what would you say? So, I mean, we're talking on the behaviors, that successful, people have. What would you say that, today, for example, small business owners could adopt? What behaviors in order to close that gap and become more successful, in their goals?
This is going to sound odd, but go with me on it. The ability and the habit and the behavior of psychologically disconnecting from work. So because we talk about resilience, and one thing that isn't often talked about is the recovery period. So yes, getting up after you've been hit down, that idea, or getting that language of now what, and learning how to fail is all really important. as is the recovery time. And if for small business owners, it's a marathon. It is not something that comes around tomorrow. So they have to have the energy and the capacity to keep going. And in order to do that, you need to recover. Your brain needs to recover. So if we think of this like as if it was physical fitness and it was a marathon, you rest between runs, right? And so the idea is for your brain, if you are doing a marathon of work and working crazy hours or long or really taxing and stressful work, that you are recovering and sufficiently recovering. So that means different things to different people. Sleep, absolutely. But we tend to put that on the back burner. Actually, sleep is one of the first things to go. Socializing, social time, that is your sanity. Do it. It is the most linked behavior to long-term health, which surprised me. I'm an exercise physiologist, so to be told exercise is not everything was very shocking to me. But like these behaviors, these health behaviors, to me, that is what's going to give you the longevity to do the second, third, fourth effort to getting you where you need to go.
Why is it then? I mean, there's honestly not an entrepreneur I have ever spoken with who says, that we know intellectually these things. I know that sleep is good for me and I should do it. I know that socializing is good, but I need to work 16 or 17 hours a day in my business. I mean, it happens. And the only thing that's going to happen is burnout, but there is it's almost this anxiety that happens when people slow down. Like, what is the correlation? Explain that conundrum.
Yeah. So there's a few things there. Like many, not even just entrepreneurs, but many people in leadership positions say that I'm oversimplifying it, but essentially their competitive advantage is to think in the future and learn from the past. So why should I be present? Why should I, disengage? Why should I? You're right. You need to be able to do the thinking in the future, learning from the past. But if you can, like, if it was a flashlight and you could look exactly where you want it to go, that's your advantage. Not the ability to go forward and backwards. It's the ability to control where you are thinking. Okay. And so for those people, the idea of slowing down, the idea of disconnecting causes so much anxiety because they don't have the confidence that they can get it back. They don't have the confidence they can be present and then shift back to where they were thinking, where they were going, what they were worrying about, right? Because we worry so well.
Yeah.
The other thing with this concept, and I'm kind of lumping leaders and entrepreneurs and everybody in together, is we've been rewarded so long on how much work we do. Right. And honestly, many of us wear it as badges of honor. I'm so busy right now, as in all these meetings, and now I have this event, and we talk about it like that. Nobody's like, you know what, I read a book by myself in silence today. You know what I mean? And your boss doesn't come up to you and be like, good job taking your vacation, or good job making sure that you did some self-care last night, whatever that is for you. So we get rewarded and we do what we're rewarded for. So being in academia for as long as I have been, it's this constant idea that you should be working and there's no end, right? Like there's no, all the research is done, I'm good. Like that's never a thought. And it's the same thing with small business. It's never over. So you have to determine what works for you. But I'm saying what is non-negotiable is your recovery period. So what is that for you? And I do mean that that's different for everyone. So for me, recovery is going for a run and or going like skating or on the back of a speedboat. Like that's recovery to me. It's not necessarily sitting and unwinding, but that is for some people. And it's just having that knowledge of what you need to recover and then making sure that you build that in. That is what's going to set you up for the long run. And we do it in our business. We plan for the worst within our business. We try to strategize there, but we don't do it necessarily for us, which is the main asset, right? Especially for a small business. So I really encourage people to think through that and to figure out how do they effectively switch off.
It's such an aha for me in this conversation that your recovery period is a non-negotiable. I mean, that just, and then the visual of going for a run and not recovering, just really, that makes it so clear why it's so important. So thank you for that, because it doesn't get talked about enough and it is incredibly important. You know,
Well, and this is where social networks and this idea of people actually rewarding and asking about your time off. I strongly encourage that for
right.
people in your life, is to give them a high five for doing the things that are taking care of themselves, because again, from society perspective, that's not what's rewarded, and we do what is rewarded, right? So
Absolutely. Is there an amount of time that needs to happen? How do you know, how do you know that, well, I need 6 hours of self-care a day? When is too much not, when is too much too much? Or what's not,
it's a great question. And the problem is, and you've addressed it already, there's no number, like absolutely not, as there isn't for habit development. Unfortunately, we're all very different. Fortunately, but unfortunately, we're all very different in that respect. And I'll preface this: if you're in a period of intense stress and or you have gone through burnout, it's going to be lengthy. It's going to be a
right.
long time. That's why I encourage people to practice it daily,
Are we
if
talking
not.
about hours, days, weeks,
So it
years?
depends on what you're going through. So it should be done. Like in an ideal world, this is something practiced every day. It might only be 15 minutes. It might be
Right.
5 minutes of meditation in your car. It might not be going for a full-on run or watching a movie. Like you might not have time for that. Then trying to figure out something on a weekly basis, monthly basis, and then yearly basis where you are actively thinking about that recovery time and figuring out what works for you. If you have gone through or have been burnt out, this is substantial. You have literally changed the nervous system in your body, and you
Yeah.
need to reprogram it. So that's a little bit more extensive. In saying that, I would argue, correct me if I'm wrong, that most small business owners, especially in the first couple of phases, are somewhere on the burnout trajectory. Like we're all kind of cruising along somewhere there. So it's a matter of trying to find those little moments, those small things that you can do that you understand that your brain needs to recover. So if that's just, admitting that I need to rest this weekend so that I can, really come at it next weekend, it's really important.
That is so, the burnout piece is so important. We often have to red flag that for our clients. We see those
Yeah.
signs often way before they see those signs. And
Yes.
being an entrepreneur, a recovering entrepreneur who has suffered burnout myself, and I really didn't understand what it was when I was going through it. But you saying that it actually like psychologically rewires you, I actually fully resonate with that sentence. I understand what that means. So burnout's not a little thing. How do you know from your experience, and I'm sure you've gone through this too, you're a new mom, you've started a business, you've got a great business going. How do you know when there's balance, when you're getting enough self-care, when you're like, it's hard because every day you're feeling something slightly different. So is there a way of just knowing that we're sort of on the right track? Like, what are the signs, would you say, of burnout? And when do you feel like, yep, might not be perfect balance, but I'm getting everything that I need?
So balance to me, in my opinion, is not possible. It's never going to happen. If you strive for it, you set yourself up for failure, unfortunately.
Right.
So the thing that I've taken in my life that this is how I operate, it's what needs to happen, is I'm truly present wherever I am. So, and then obviously I dedicate time to strategic planning and things like that, and thinking to the future. But if I'm at home, I'm at home. As in, like, if I'm said I'm going to spend dinner with my family, I'm not coming home to half thinking about work, half being with my family, doing two things terribly, and then trying to move on from that. I really do try to be present wherever I am. Making that shift and making that commitment to myself, whether it is 16 hours a day of work and 2 hours of family time, or the vice versa, but I'm being present and I'm understanding why I'm investing the time and energy there, has made such a difference for me. And that's something I strongly encourage to think about. When I talk about burnout, you're absolutely right. Most people don't know they're burnt out till they're full on burnt out. Like they don't see all the warning signs. They don't see the things, whether or not people around you see them, because there's so many symptoms, but they get messed up with other things going, oh, they're just stressed, oh, they're going to get through this project, or whatever it is. We kind of intellectualize ourselves out of it, or other people do for us. As soon as somebody repeats to themselves, I can't do this anymore, I can't do this anymore, I can't do this anymore, every burnout person has said those words to themselves, and that's already burnout. You're full on in burnout if you've had those repeated sentences come into your life. And I mean, I could talk about burnout probably now for, well, I know I could, 3-4 hours. It is such a fascinating thing, but most people that hear the word burnout, to your point, you didn't know about it when you were in it, but if somebody said burnout to you, you'd be like, yes, I don't even really know what that is, but yes, that sounds like exactly what I'm going through. And, you know, I give the analogy, you're frying your neurons. You're not giving the recovery time. They're overworked, they're overstressed, they're fried. And that results in all sorts of different things for different people, whether it's disrupted sleep, whether that's anxiety, whether that's being cold or like, you know, removed. There's so many different ways it could express itself. But what seems to resonate with most people is repeating, I can't do this anymore.
I remember that stage. We hear it, we do hear it in our coaching conversations. You know, I mean, you're touching on, it's beautiful to hear you reflect on, like, the biggest thing for you is the shift about being truly present in every moment that you are in, rather than, you know, I spend 8 hours at home doing 8 hours at work, like, that's the balance, like this equal balance that we, you know, society seems to be seeking. It doesn't actually exist. Is there another, you know, habit would you consider that your number one habit that you do every day? Is there another habit that everyone should do every single day that would inevitably help them to hit their short-term, long-term goals?
Yeah. So how I can be present is I have to practice that. I have to practice mindfully. It is not something that comes naturally, as we all are. Like, of course, I'll be at the dog park with my dog in these beautiful mountains being like, this is gorgeous. I wonder what they meant by that budget report. Like, your mind goes, right? It is a practice to be able to do that. I'm not perfect. I'm not even close. But what I practice is bringing my thoughts back to the present. When I notice they're wandering, bringing it back, because I do want to use the time I have and the energy I have the most effectively every minute of every day. Right. The other thing that and we talked a little bit about this, the other habit that I have started to develop that has made such a big difference, because most of us have the hard skills, the tangible skills to get this going, or we can source them. Right. I don't know how to say this without sounding a little corny, but like that self-kindness or forgiveness, when it comes to what I think I can do, what I set out to do, and then what life throws at me and what I actually get done. So looking at all of those factors and just being able to put it into perspective, reframe, agility on a daily basis of what that means, how are we going to shift? I think that's been a really big thing. The other thing that I have to say is I am not a good person. I'm not at my best without physical activity. And I know that this is something I grew up in, so it's part of my life, and that's who I am. But there's been many days in the last year that I've been commuting back and forth, and it hasn't gotten into my day. It needs to. And even 15-minute walk, I sleep better, my head's better, everything's better. Some people gravitate towards that. Some people prefer other things. But for me, that is a habit that makes life possible.
Exercise, even 15 minutes a day. I know, I think it just goes to what's really important, you know, the recovery period, the self-talk, the practice mindset versus the, you know, should have been born with that. Exercising instead of just sitting and working, you know, 12, 14, 16 hours a day. It is really important to bring these pieces into our life. And that is going to help us to obtain goals.
There was a study that came out, and I really appreciate this. They said if people just walk half an hour a day, they're 25 to 35% more productive. So even if you're like, I don't have time to do this today, is it not an investment with a great return that you can utilize for whatever you need to get done? So when we think about what gets pushed aside for us to get stuff done, don't let that be one of them, because it is an investment in your energy level. Then you can do more, think better, whatever. And then they've done so many studies now, they're fascinating, with exercise and creativity. So you're stuck, you're not working quickly, you're seeing yourself being distracted, whatever it is, just go move. That's what we're meant to do. So, and then as a stress management technique, 100%. I joke that the sweat for sanity, but I really do mean it.
So can you just touch a little bit more on stuck? Because our clients, obviously as business owners, we get stuck all the time. We get stuck, we're often our own worst enemies. We get stuck in a routine that's not serving us. We get stuck not wanting to make the really important sales call that we have to make. There's many, many different ways that we get stuck. Can you just give us a couple of examples of way to get unstuck besides exercise?
There's different things that work for different people. So one of the things that I know works really well, it's not something I often practice, but I do know it works well for a lot of people, is thinking, what is the worst that can happen? Going there and then realizing it's not that bad, and then bringing yourself back to whatever behavior it is. So like you're thinking of making the sales call, what is the worst thing that can happen? They say no. Okay, well, that's not that bad, I'll live. Right. And then, it kind of pushes you beyond that limiting belief that you have, that, or fear of failure, or whatever it might be. So that I know works really well with people. When I feel stuck, I always go to certain colleagues and friends and start a conversation about whatever it might be. That always pushes me, excites me a little, like gets me going again. And I know not always, I'm somebody that likes some rules, like basically a playing field, and then letting me make the decisions within those goalposts, or there's a playing field. So I have friends that will give me goalposts, or they'll make me accountable for whatever it is, to kind of push me past that barrier. When it comes to lifestyle things that routines that you get stuck on, a classic one now that I talk to people all the time about, they're so burnt out in their job, they come home, they turn on whatever show on Netflix and let Netflix watch them as the
Netflix binge. Everyone talks about it.
Oh yeah. And so when it comes to things like that, there's really easy ways to switch that up. And when I say that, behaviors are hard to change, but okay, same behavior. You want to watch Netflix, pick out a show you love, not whatever's there and I'm just going to binge whatever. Something you love, get some popcorn, get somebody you love that you'll enjoy watching, and decide on how many episodes you're going to watch versus letting it watch you. So it's the same behavior, takes no more energy, but has a completely different result. Right? And then when we talk about, for example, alcohol, a lot of people turn to alcohol at the end of the day to, unwind or kind of recap after a hard day. You can go and drink a bottle of wine by yourself, and there's that option. Is it effective for you, your health, your sleep, your productivity? No, it's not at all. None of that. Okay, but you want a glass of wine at the end of the day. Call a friend, get a glass of wine, actually talk about what's going on, and then you're getting the health benefits from it as well. You still have the same behavior, it's just going to be less because you're assumingly splitting the wine with someone. And actually getting that decompression is what you need. You need to talk about it, right? So that's the kind of ideas to get unstuck, is being like, how can I add elements to this? Same behavior, so not, completely reversing what I do. And then the idea is that over time that changes, right? Like it's no longer Netflix, you have the person you love and you're going to do a board game, or you're going to, go for a walk, or whatever it is. But just challenging yourselves a little bit beyond those routines, but not terribly beyond. So small changes.
Small changes make the difference. I love that. Grab a glass of wine with a friend.
This is my health advice to you. Go get a glass of wine with a friend.
It comes at a good time. Lisa, you've shared a lot of really great information with us today. Can you leave us with, is there the one thing, or one thing, if you could emphasize more than others, that listeners today could immediately apply to reaching a goal, personal or professional goal, that they should start doing right now? Is it possible to can it be that simple?
I don't think it's that simple. And saying that just doing one thing in the right direction is going to definitely help.
Making
I think
one small change.
So if I could articulate one thing, we haven't fully talked, we've hit on it, but we haven't really delved into it, that is the secret, if you will, is breaking that goal down into the smallest possible components. And each one of those is a win. I'll give you an example. I was working on a exercise trial with breast cancer patients. So they're actually going through chemotherapy. And if you've ever known somebody that's gone through chemo, it's horrific and the side effects are crap. And we were bringing them into the gym and getting them to work out 3 times a week. So the agreement we had with them is they don't have to come and work out, but they have to come to us 3 times a week. So we were taking that exercise routine and being like, nope, you have to do the smallest component, and that's considered a success. That's considered a check mark in your attendance. So they get there, they start talking to us. Yes, I'm feeling awful. Fatigue was the major symptom. And they're like, well, I'm here. I might as well get on the treadmill, but I can't do my full program today. I'll do less of it. No problem. Get on the treadmill, start moving. You know what? Bring it up a little bit. Anyway, long story short, we had a 97% adherence rate, which is incredible for any exercise program, let alone while somebody's on chemo. And the idea is, and I truly believe part of the magic, if you will, or that, the one thing is this idea that we ask for the most minimal. We said that's a success, and that is a great way to get you to the next step, which is going to get you to the next step, which is going to get you to the next step. So if your goal is run every morning when I wake up, that means that your smallest, it's divided into getting out of bed, getting my shoes on, getting my exercise clothes on, getting out the door, getting to the end of the driveway, getting for that first kilometer. And what happens is, okay, I only have to get out of bed. Check. Well, I'm out of bed. I might as well put my exercise clothes on. Well, I'm in my exercise clothes. I might as well get to that next step. And that's how our brains work. That's how we can manipulate them and get them going, is breaking it down into the smallest steps and saying each one of those is a win. Then, to my point, if you just wake up and you're like, nope, not feeling it this morning, go back to bed, and it's a win, you're more likely to do it the next day. That not yet mentality, right? Like, I didn't fail, I got to step 1, and then I'm more likely to do it the next day. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. That does feel like you just gave us like insight to a little secret. that minuscule step is just so important. I mean, we often say, in our coaching call, if it's for example, for a business owner, if it's around a sales call, just pick up the phone. Just pick up the phone and put the phone down. Yes. And so it's great to hear. It's great to hear you talk more about that minuscule little steps that you can take. How would that look? Would people actually write that out for themselves? Or
yes. Absolutely. A great practice is to write out what those incredibly small, and like, it's annoying, like, it's ridiculous when you write them out, right? Like, they're like picking up the phone. Good job. Like, but it is incredibly effective, because what our brain wants is a reward. When we succeed at a task, we're like, yeah, I'm awesome. I'm more likely, I get this self-efficacy, I get this self-confidence, right? And I'm more likely to do the next step, right?
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Lisa, thank you so much for being with us today. It was incredible to speak with you, and you really shared some great insight with us. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was an absolute pleasure. I know you have a busy schedule and you've taken time to share your expertise with us today. For everyone who's watching, if you would like to learn more about SLAP, which is our 13-month behavior change program, which is a 360-degree approach to helping build the right action plan for your business, please make sure that you do visit our website. It's www.smallbizsilverlining.com. Also, if you'd like to learn more about Lisa and the work that she does and how to get in touch with her, please visit her website at www.consciousworks.co. Until next time. Bye.
Bye, thank you.